I'm Dr. David Bernstein. Welcome back to our series, 25 Tips for Working with Modes. Now, last time you learned how to dance the dance, how to turn a struggle with modes into a dance. And now we're going to go a step further, because if you really want to know how to dance, you need to feel the music. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that to really work with modes, you need to be in touch with emotions, with your own emotions and with your client's emotions. So let me give you an example. Imagine that you're in a therapy session and here's the mode of the client, a detached protector mode. You're asking the patient questions about his week. How did things go? He says, okay. How's he feeling right now? Fine. Is there anything that he wants to talk about? Not really. Okay, so this is a mode in which, clients detach from their emotions and tend to avoid any kind of difficult or emotional topics. Well, it's very often the case that when we encounter this kind of mode, that we detach ourselves, that we unconsciously flip ourselves into a detached protector mode. And why is that? Well, the reason is that we're social animals, right? We need social contact, we need connection. And it's uncomfortable or even painful to us when we don't have it. And so we may then fall back on our own coping mechanisms and unconsciously detach ourselves. And then what happens? Well, then you have a session where, the client is cut off from his emotion and all of the bodily sensations and feelings that go along with that, and so are we. And so in essence, the session, consists of, one head talking to another head without any real sense of genuine connection. Okay, so, what can we do about this? How can we really learn how to dance with a detached mode when we detach ourselves? Well, the first thing we need to do is to get back in touch with ourselves. And the way that we do that is by bringing mindful attention to our own modes. And that means just simply noticing, hey, how am I feeling right now? Could it be that I'm in a mode right now? What are my bodily sensations? What are my emotions? So, it's a kind of, in a sense, a kind of radical acceptance of our own emotional states. This is just how I am feeling right now. I'm feeling detached. I'm feeling numb. And simply by bringing that kind of mindful awareness and acceptance to our own experience, we begin to come back to ourselves. This is part of the process of bringing our own healthy adult mode back online. And because we need to be in touch with ourselves in order to be in touch with the patient, right? We can't really connect with patients unless we connect with ourselves. Okay, so now here we've dealt a little bit with our own emotional responses. Now, what can we do when the patient is detached? Well, one of the things that's very helpful to remember is that behind that detachment, there are more vulnerable sides, emotional sides of the patient. Now, maybe at that moment the patient himself isn't in touch with it or aware of it, but those sides exist. And if we can try to keep an image of that patient's child modes in mind, it helps us to connect with him. The reason for that is that when clients are in coping modes, right, modes that are dominated by their coping responses, it blocks access for us to their child sides. It makes it harder for us to reach those sides or even to feel that those sides are there. And that makes it harder for us to empathize with them, to empathize with their emotions. So if we can form an image in our heads of that patient's vulnerable sides or child modes, it really helps us then to tune more into, what are the emotions potentially that are behind that detachment. And how can we do that? Well, maybe you've gotten glimpses of those of that person's emotional or vulnerable sides before in other sessions, or you've heard stories from him or her that tell you something, give you kind of an idea of what that little child was like. Or maybe they've even brought in photographs of themselves when they were young to show you. But wherever it comes from, just see if you can form an image in your head of that vulnerable child that's behind that wall. And when your patient's detached, just try to go and call up that image for yourself, and that'll help you to feel more connected to the patient. Okay, then how further? Well, there are a whole variety of techniques that you can use when patients are in detached modes to try to help them to get more in touch with their emotions. The first is just asking them to take a moment and pause and start to bring some mindful awareness to their own emotional experience. What are they feeling right now? What are the sensations and emotions in their body? There are a variety of experiential techniques that we can use, and many of these we use in schema therapy, like chair work and imagery rescripting, that are designed to activate patients emotionally and help them to get more in touch with the emotions underneath that wall. There are other techniques like asking patients to bring in a photograph of himself or a childhood photograph with his family, or write letters to his family. And again, these are emotion-evoking techniques. We can ask them to bring in songs because, as you know, songs move us emotionally. So, songs often have a special meaning for us. So ask them to bring songs in and share with them, share those songs with us. And then finally, the iModes images are designed also to evoke emotion, and they can be very, very helpful in helping people to get more in touch with their emotions and share those emotions with us. Okay. So now you already have a little bit of an idea of how you can start to feel the music of the modes, of your own modes and of the patient's modes. But really, to go a step further and really feel those modes, that music, we need to amplify it. We need to turn up the volume on the music of the modes. And how do we do that? Well, that's the topic for next week's video. Amplify it. Okay. And finally, I'd like to invite you to come to our website, www.imodes.com, and take a look at our image-based therapy tools. Okay, have a great week and see you next time.